Welcome back to Resorts World, Genting and the Arena of Stars. Obviously, fantastic views outside. It is absolutely amazing out there. We went out the cable car the other day and saw all of the 6,000 feet that is down to the very bottom. We are joined by a crowd. They're going to slightly fill up as we go through. Obviously, some of them having a little bit of a break right now, just coming back in after a fantastic first series of the day. The second one, though, much more exciting if you're a Southeast Asia fan. And we have one of those fans on the panel right now. Joining us is Gods. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm not sure what time zone you think you're in, but welcome to Malaysia anyway.
Thank you. I've had a few Red Bulls. I've made sure I go. I feel like it's a cardinal sin missing that first day of Dota. But
awful. You are a terrible human being for missing it. Yeah. And it was all for a wedding as well.
We spent the whole entire time
socializing. What is that?
Good to have you here as always. This is, I build it up as the Battle of Southeast Asia. It is the Philippines versus Malaysia. You've had a lot to say about Southeast Asia. Do you think they get a hard time sometimes?
Oh, they come into every LAN event kind of underrated and looked at as teams that should be beaten by the more popular teams from China, from the Western scene, from America, from North America. They're the teams always causing upsets, but realistically, I think it's because they don't get looked at closely enough. Yep. They don't get studied enough, and they cause these upsets just because they are playing on the same level, but they're not regularly competing in international events.
When is it going to end, Gods? I mean, 5 years of this Orange, we've had MVP causing shocks, we've had TNC causing shocks. When are they going to stop being shocks and actually just be part of the game?
I think an SEA team needs to really win a TI or something. Okay. They win a TI, then they can talk.
And then everyone else has to shut up after that.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. I mean, at least place top 3 again. I kind of disagree with this narrative that it's like, oh, that they're like not the underdogs, that they're not, because like there was a time where Southeast Asia was very strong, and then I think we definitely I don't think you can't really argue that there was a time that Southeast Asia was weaker. And then I think we're getting into a period of time where Southeast Asia is going to be strong again. I think it's just like the ebb and flow that naturally happened.
We've had that with China.
Like CIS.
Yeah.
And it's at this point now where it's now the new blood coming out, similar to CIS, where it's new players like Ramses and No One who are kind of spearheading these new CIS teams. It's no longer the same SEA players who are at the top. It's not Fnatic you're seeing at the recent major. It's these guys, WG Unity, who are there. It was Execration, who had a great run, almost getting into TI this recent year. So we're seeing new blood come out of the SEA scene.
So let's start with Execration, talk about them. Filipino team, obviously a brand new lineup as it is right now in terms of the last 6 months. The star stands out as DJ, the man that was with Fnatic before and has now come into that. He was, heralded as the star when we went to Manila with ESL One and at the Manila Major. Massive fan base as well. But it's not just him that it's all about.
It's not. Gabby, to me, is probably the other big playmaker on this team. I mean, there's some puck plays that are like the best plays of the 2016. Some people have rated them. They lost Abed, though, which is probably, to me, the big talking point here is that they lost that big star player. Bringing in Nando, though, is a guy that they're familiar with. He used to play with them on the team before they had Abed. So it's not going to hurt the team synergy too much, but they are going to miss some of that raw star power.
Yeah, absolutely. Kat, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it was interesting because we were having the debate before we went live of which of these two teams is actually stronger. And I think Execration, despite the fact that Warriors Gaming Unity had this qualifier and everything else, and they didn't get a chance to really prove themselves, I personally have been leaning towards Execration for this tournament over the other 2 Southeast Asian teams for this tournament. I just think that like DJ is such a great pickup for them, and I think that even though he's transitioning to the offlane position, I think that the way I look at the offlane is that there are a lot more opportunities for you to make things happen from the offlane than it used to be in the previous patch. Like he was such a great 4 position because he was a playmaker who understood like the flow of the game, who was able to make these right rotations. You can do that now as an offlaner instead of just being this kind of miserable, I'm playing Clockwork or I'm playing Slardar and I'm trying to make my lane work. You can actually make things happen thanks in part to Shrines and just the way that the game oftentimes is a lot more frenetic when it comes to movement.
And that's what people, I think, forget the old DJ back when he played on Rave. He was playing off lane as well as mid lane back then. He made a name for himself as the star player in those roles, playing puck from the mid lane, playing these flashy off laners. It wasn't until he joined Fnatic that he started playing support.
Yeah, his mid was particularly powerful. In fact, I actually was hoping that we would get a return to that, just because I think the mid lane is also going to be shifting as well to that more aggressive play style that he used to play as a mid. Like you said, Puck, you got the Queen of Pain. Like you have those sort of tempo controllers that are going to be coming out of the mid laner now, instead of those more farming mids that were in the previous patch.
Speaking of Rave, whatever happened to his former teammate? Was it Chrissy on the offlane back then?
Chrissy is DJ.
Yeah, it was
Same
Chrissy
man.
CJ,
His
same-
evil
same
twin.
name.
There we go.
So this is back to your problem again of 10 years ago Dota.
No, because I remember being in
Pit Lord.
Taiwan with Austin, and we were praising Chrissy, and I was just thinking,
Yeah,
because
I remember that.
yeah, he was already amazing back then. That's 2 years ago or something. And then when he was talking about the mid lane, who was on the mid lane then? Was it Jao?
They had Jao playing carry, and Chrissy and one other guy would swap between carry
Yeah,
and mid. It was
who's
one of the
their actual
one of the
offlane?
Filipino players. I can't recall it right now.
It's okay. It's
Awesome.
fine anyway.
That was the third player. I was just wondering whatever
yeah.
happened to him, because those two players really stood out to me on Brave, and
Yeah.
he would have been one of those other players like DJ. He had that same caliber, that same level, where he could have pulled out the Philippines on an international level.
Okay, let's move on and talk about Warriors Gaming now. Obviously fantastic in the qualifiers, did really well. That's all we've got to know about them so far, because their first game went up to against Wings. Cap, on paper, you'd look at it and go, well, that's a bit of a mismatch. They're going to get thumped. But they didn't. They actually held their own. There was a moment, I mean, Owen made the point earlier on that actually, without one mistake in that game, they could have taken Wings.
Yeah, they definitely could have. I remember watching some of that game, and I think that Wings is kind of interesting because they want to be able to fight, particularly in the mid game. But what Southeast Asian teams are particularly strong at is the team fight going into mid game. I think like sometimes their laning phase can be a bit hit or miss, and their late game can be hit or miss as well. But I think their mid game is usually where they're strongest. So with the matchup against Wings, it was like Wings is also like that's usually the time they don't necessarily focus on the early game, but they will focus heavily on being able to win out the mid game. They don't want to try and go late game necessarily either.
Yeah.
So it was just like the clash of these two teams and what they were strongest at.
Yeah, it's an interesting clash, this one as well, Gods, isn't it, between the two teams? Both Southeast Asia, both played plenty of matches against each other. Teams have been interchanging each other as well, plenty of scrims in amongst them. They're going to know what to expect.
Yeah, they've been playing in all their regional tournaments, so unlike some of the SEA versus Western team matchups where there's some surprise picks coming out, these teams kind of know each other from front to back, so we'll see perhaps some different bans more targeted at what they know their opponents want to do. But similarly, it's a completely new patch. It's also somewhat new rosters for Execration at least, so I think it's going to be a bit too hard to say like how much that's going to affect things.
So we've seen the recurring trend of Meepo being banned out. Do you think that's
Yeah.
going to stick, even though Abed is no longer on Execration?
WG Unity have a great Meepo player, so there's definitely a chance.
And we saw it earlier in the first match. Neither team had a recognised Meepo player, and yet they were both banning it. So it seems like it's a surefire thing for the bans. I want to get on to the Philippines versus Malaysia rivalry. I don't speak too loudly right now, right? Because we are in Malaysia after all. These guys are going to get hometown support, obviously, out of this one as well. Is that going to help?
You think
a little bit?
Probably not so much. I mean, it's definitely going to help when they walk on stage, but once you sit down and you focus on your game, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
It helps some players. It helps the experienced players who like live for that moment. But WG Uni, they're an inexperienced team. I think if anything, that's added pressure for them. They're a team that maybe the nerves will get to them because of that added pressure.
TI though, they've been there. They've been on big stages.
I mean, they were the major. They took a game off of OG, so that was when they were really the true underdogs. Here they come into this match like they're not. It's probably a kind of 50-50 matchup or close to that. So
Yeah, they didn't have the home crowd advantage like they did.
True.
Home crowd advantage, but we keep calling it an advantage, but it's not necessarily.
No,
so,
sometimes
right?
it can be more pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But DJ is the one that sticks out in my mind from when we were in Manila twice. In that he actually does thrive on that,
man,
doesn't he?
yeah.
I mean, he's literally playing out of his skin when he goes in front of his home crowd. So it does lift players as well. And there's your lineup for Warriors Gaming Unity. All 5 players on there. A standout player, Cap, for you?
I think Afu was really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone remember that incredible Earth Spirit game that he had.
They were so good at being able to rotate. Like that was like he was such a disruptive player.
Yeah, I had the same thought. It leads back to what we talked about earlier, how a 4 position often can change the tide of the game as well. And I thought in Boston, I thought Afu did a great job in just creating a lot of space for his team, basically, and just completely disrupting the enemy.
All right, we've got the draft just ahead of us, but before we get there, we do need 2 teams. So let's head over to the main stage where Eri is waiting for us.
Who's first? All right, are we ready for our next match? I love that. They're like, yeah, we're ready. Let's do it. Okay, so it's been a great day so far, starting off really, really awesome. And now we have Malaysia against the Philippines, and we're going to start with our first team. Let's give it up for Execration! Execration making their way to the stage. Here they are. Yeah, hyping it up. Yeah, wave to him. Wave to him that he loves you. There you go. You made his day. Amazing, DJ. Good to see you, buddy. All right, Execration. Give it up for them. There you go. Their opponents. Give it up for WG Unity. Your very own WG Unity. There you go. Our second match for day 2 of ESL One Genting. Execration, WG Unity. Here we go.
There we go then. The Stars have entered the arena of Stars. Talking of Stars. Jacob, no, I can't do it.
How many times have you played with that?
I was going to try, but I couldn't do it. We're going to get into the draft next up. Gods, I think this is going to be fun in terms of draft between these two. Because of the fact they know each other, they've played each other, they've scrimmed each other, and they'll know their preferences as well. We might see some targeted bans in here.
Yeah, there'll be a big focus on some of the early game picks. I think some of the big kind of aggressive team fight heroes as well. Heroes like the Sand King, the Rubik. These have been popular supports, commonly banned heroes, but these teams will love to fight. They'll love to brawl. The early to mid game is going to be where the focus is with the picks.
Yeah, we've been talking a little bit backstage about picks and bans and who's been picked and banned the most. Are you surprised by anything so far? Or is 7.01 nothing is going to surprise anyone?
There's no one hero that stands out as like must pick, must ban. I mean, we're kind of talking about like what's actually even getting commonly banned. Underlord's the most banned hero, but hasn't been banned every game by any means. It's only been banned in maybe close to 2/3 of the games. There's been a few jug bans here and there, Shadow Demons, Lunas, but there's no clear must ban, must pick heroes yet. And I think some of the heroes that are particularly strong, not all teams are playing. Like I still feel like Io is one of the best heroes right now. If you've got a good Io player, like that hero, the global mobility is just so good on this patch with the new shrines, the regeneration aspect. So I think there's a few heroes that are being underrated. Do
you find that surprising, Cap, as well? We saw a fantastic usage of Io yesterday alongside the Underlord and the Meepo as well. Are you surprised we haven't seen more?
Yeah, because with any bottle carrier and any hero that roams around in general is going to have a huge benefit with the fresh bounty runes. So that has been surprising to me, especially since being able to have strong, oppressive lanes seems to be one of the markers of this patch so far. Another thing has been the importance of the mid matchup and how teams have been usually leaving that mid for last pick or maybe fourth pick. That was something that you would, like in previous patch, it was a little bit more iffy, right? You could see mids picked up, maybe the second pick or the 3-4, but now it seems like a lot more people are valuing being able to have that 1v1 matchup. And I think it comes, again, back down to the fact that we're having less farming mids and more tempo controller mids, so you want to be able to have a favorable matchup.
Yeah, it's in a lot of vision game as well. Hasn't always worked, Jacob. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't have anything for the vision game, but for the actual bans coming out from Execration, especially now that they did lose Arbit, we saw if yesterday was any indication, I think we can expect them to ban out the Meepo. As Gods was saying, VG does have a Meepo player. On top of that, the Underlord, probably the second ban as well, just because that hero is incredibly strong, and if you don't want to play it yourself, you don't want to risk the enemy getting it. And I'm assuming that the reason they banned it out against VP is not just because Pasha played it a lot in pops, but probably also because they realized the strength of the hero through having potentially sprint teams like Warrior Game.
Yeah, predictions are in from the community. So they're 54-46 in favor of WG.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair prediction as well. It's a super close matchup the way I see it.
Yeah. Which way would you go?
I'm actually leaning slightly towards Execration, but I might might be super biased in terms of my love for Chrissy.
You love him so much, you know his other name.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know it was him. I just had so much love for both of
You've
them.
loved him for a long time, you just didn't even know.
And now I combine that love, and it's even bigger.
Yeah. Shots, which way would you go?
I feel WG's the stronger team, but it's going to come down to the nerves because Execration have more veteran players.
Sorry, do you still think there's going to be nerves?
Yeah. They're a newer team. They're playing in front of the home crowd. I think there's higher expectations on them than ever before now that they've played at a major and done well. And I think Execration have the more veteran captain in Chemo, more veteran players in DJ, as well as other players like Owa, who's like Owa and Nando. These guys have been around for like 10 years playing Dota 1.
Yeah, hasn't Kimmo been on Execration for like 3 years now or something?
Oh, he was on TNC?
But yeah, he was on
Execration, I think.
Yeah, he's been on Execration for a long time.
Maybe that's why.
He played at like a Star Ladder event like 6 years or 5 years ago for Execration as well. Like, these guys are long-time veterans.
So we do see two fairly traditional pixel bands, the Darkseer and the Jug, but two that we don't always see. Are they targeted?
But this must mean that they know each other pretty well. Like an Omni-Knight first ban doesn't
seems a bit odd, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit out of order. Then we see a lot of DC. We've seen a lot of Legion Commander bans throughout the tournament, but never in the first phase.
Yeah. Does of course let a number of heroes through that have been very strong so far in the last 2 days, not least of which Shadow Demon Mirana combo, and the Luna as well.
Yeah. It's nice because you block the SD Luna, but also get a good combo in the SD Mirana. We saw Newbie use this to great effect with like an aggressive tri-lane just yesterday, and it's very flexible where you can lane the Mirana in a 4 position with good synergy in the mid lane. So it doesn't really doesn't force WG Unity to do any set lanes.
Yeah, no, it's
and
something
they can change up as well during the game if they want to.
Yeah. Something that Warriors is pretty familiar with as well. Run this combination a number of times. I think the combination with Luna at this point, maybe you think about picking up your Rubik, but the unfortunate thing is that a lot of the defensive heroes that are strong versus the Shadow Demon Mirana are not really in vogue in this patch just yet.
Right.
We saw one Dazzle pick earlier. We haven't seen any Oracles. We saw one Abaddon, and that was pretty disastrous.
Poor.
I think you usually want a little bit more playmaking out of your supports, but in this case, you're probably forced into it.
That's a problem with running into this support duo. It's probably the most potent and versatile support duo of any in terms of where it can be on the map, just because if you don't want an aggressive tri-lane, you just go in, secure kills in the middle lane, and if you need to support your safe lane, that's easily done as well. So they can pretty much be everywhere on the map and still be successful and always use the time correctly.
And you're always afraid, like you see that SD Mirana, your first thought with your second pick is we got to secure our Luna's farm, because SD Mirana with any offlane type hero can just wreck a Luna. So you go into this Dazzle pick, you're probably even thinking about your other support being something to protect your safe lane. Like you really got to secure that Luna's farm once that SD Mirana comes out.
And now you're theoretically already playing on the back foot, just because you're the one on the receiving end. However, if we look at OG at Frankfurt Major 2015, they actually played this Dazzle combo to great success against, for instance, virtus.pro, who played a very aggressive style back then. So being able to throttle the aggression from the enemy and turning it on them is a tried and tested combo as well, that when you can then take down objectives afterwards.
Surprised you can remember that far back.
Alchemist, Meepo.
No comeback.
Axe. I mean, that was really low-hanging fruit, right?
It was.
Yeah. We just turned it around back on you.
It was presented, and I took the bait.
Axe.
Meepo's gone as well. Okay, that's good. Haha. Yes, Malaysia versus the Philippines. Axe and Elk. I've seen an awful lot of Alchemists.
You want
banned so far, have we?
I think from this, you usually want self-sufficient laners, just in case you do want to go the Shadow Demon Mirana. So having safe laners like, for example, like Lifestealer is a great safe lane carry who doesn't really need a whole lot of help. That frees up your supports to be able to roam around quite a bit. There is still the Slardar, who's been incredibly popular.
And incredibly bad.
Incredibly bad. Is lost like
a 14% win rate.
True, but there is a reason that he's been
games,
picked, right?
Still.
There is still a reason he's been picked.
For Execration, though, I would be sort of regretful having banned out the Juggernaut myself, because it's the natural counter for the roaming from the Mirana and Shadow Demon. It's the only hero that can really guarantee not being hit by that combo.
It's definitely left some thought. Both teams here.
We could pick up just like a tankier style mid, like
The Dragon Knights,
Dragon
even
Knight.
like an OD type hero has pretty good stats and can be at least somewhat sustainable.
I still feel like the tankier heroes like Viper, DK, and Razor have a lot of value in this patch because they're so good at fighting and they scale better than they used to. In fact, DK, for example, right here would give them just this overwhelming pushing power that would be tough to be able to stop.
They could also attempt running a Wisp on the middle lane, and then, you know, if they do aggressive tri-lane, swap the Wisp down there and just keep the Luna alive with all the healing.
That's true. You would need to be able to have disables from your other two cores, but having Wisp Dazzle is not the worst support combination as long as your cores are able to make up for it.
You put the Sanking on the offlane and put a Dragon Knight mid. I think that's a lineup that is very potent, both in terms of pushing, has some lockdown, 5-on-5 fightability.
It's finally a pick that puts pressure back the other way, because I feel like right now they're just kind of reacting like, oh, they've got this SC Mirana, this is going to really put our lanes under pressure. And finally we see something that now gives WG Uni something to worry about. Like, okay, this could be a Sanking Dazzle in the offlane. You pair something like this up there, suddenly they've got to worry and reconsider like their safe lane carry options as well as where they're supposed
That
to
being
go.
said, a Lifestealer with the Slaughter combo is something we see a lot, and Lifestealer does really well against the Sanking if played properly.
If they don't have the Lifestealer and they have almost any other core, I think that you can alternatively as Execration put pressure on because you have this great oppressive offlaner in Sanking who challenges most other carries if left alone. So I think that was a very smart pickup just by itself. And then you could pick up like a hero like, say, Ogre Magi, right? And you can throw that hero with the Sanking. You can run this really harassive aggro duel that would then force the Mirana Shadow Demon up to that top lane a lot more. That is really interesting because
with the Slaughter.
We now see Slardar shift into the support position, and most likely Miranas are mid, and Nyx Assassin is a 4. Or Nyx Assassin is support.
What if it's
Or the other way around.
a one-position Slaughter that farms up a Blink super quick just to put out early game aggression?
I mean, that could be, that's also possible, but then you need either a really hardcore mid laner who scales, or you need a heavy pushing mid laner, because you would then have initiation from both your Slardar and Nyx Assassin. You have this great fighting power and everything, but you really do not have ways to be able to shove down towers without fighting. And Execration, it's not like they're lacking team fight of their own. They've got huge team fight capabilities with Epicenter as well as Lunasol.
So you convinced it's a mid Mirana?
I feel Slardar is the best hero in the support position of this pick.
Yeah, I think the idea of having a core Slaughter in the one position just really limits their how do you win the game? You've got nothing to really push buildings with. You've got to get that blink and then just snowball off the kills, but you can't transition out of that into taking objectives. Perhaps with like a SF OD, some kind of carry mid type pick, that changes, but it seems much higher risk for them to run that kind of play.
And Sanking's like a playmaking offlaner, right? So he's a playmaking Darkseer.
He's no longer the offlaner, though.
No, he's no longer the offlaner,
Yeah.
but they had to think about that, right? In which case Slardar as a safe laner against that would not work very well. More teamfight ultimates. Remember we were talking about like the game's pretty fast, so long cooldowns are not necessarily preferred. Execration are taking the exact opposite approach here, and they're always going to have a big teamfight ultimate available.
Well, they can win a team fight without, even when like a Tide Ravage is down, if they have Epicenter and Eclipse is the thing. Like looking at their team fight, they are so vastly superior. All it takes is one or two of those ultimates, not all three.
Yeah, because WG Unity have, again, no pushing power here. Like, they can constantly go and they can constantly fight, yes, but you're facing into a later game Luna with a Dazzle behind it. Very strong initiators in Sand King and Tidehunter in the late game as well. The late game's secured for Execration most likely. So if they just make sure they win one fight in every 3 when you're trying to go into them, like, they don't have to win. Like, they don't have to go even. They can actually, like, lose 2 fights and just win 1, and that's good enough for them.
Or just stay in lane.
Yeah, just because WG Unity can't actually take towers fast enough. So
WG Uni really needs some way to just avoid fights at this point. I feel like they need to go that more split push approach where they just don't fight into the ultimates, get something like a Morphling, Naga Siren.
Yeah.
It really has to be, they can't win the team fight. No pick really matches up to the Tide, Sand King, Luna.
If this Tide gets farmed, has like Greaves and maybe even a pipe, how do they ever kill him with the support of a Shadow Priest?
And when the scary thing is there's a Luna thing behind hitting your buildings too, and you fighting into that is going to get really tricky.
A wall of Tide. I had no follow-up on wall.
He's a watermelon. A watermelon.
I think you mentioned Morphling. I'm trying to think of what other carries that would work for WG Unity.
It's one of those heroes that
into the late game.
it split pushes, but it doesn't. Its timing comes too late. Like you're gonna get pushed down before that Morphling can really pose a threat. It feels like WG Unity, like Execration almost wants WG Unity to take the morph because they feel like their timing is going to come so much earlier.
Yeah, and the Dragonite just
this front line
on Morphling pretty hard.
This front line from Execration is so hard to deal with that it'll never. Like, VG Unity can never get to the Luna. How are they ever gonna get to that back line?
I think WG Unity's best option here is just try and snowball and they pick up like a gyrocopter or something. I think they are very much backed into a wall by their draft.
Yeah. I think that Nyx Assassin pick was
questionable.
Yeah.
It's not good against any of the heroes. It's not like you're versing some kind of hero that like an OD or a Bat Rider that counters. I was really thrown off by it.
It's beginning of the end for them.
Yeah, it's like Spike Therapy is just kind of okay.
It's just so much tank on Execration.
Drow. There's
Wow.
Oh, it's earlier timing, I guess, but I mean, it helps them around and be a bit stronger in the mid lane, but it's not like a conventional Drow start where you're going to hit this timing and just push down buildings early on.
Oh, I definitely heavily favor Execration's lineup. I love it a lot, actually. I think it's one of the most well-rounded lineups we've seen so far in the tournament.
Okay, strong draft then from Execration. Let's find out what our commentary team think of that as we head in to the first game of our second series of Day 2 here at ESL One Genting.
You know, Malini, it's not surprising that Jacob really likes this draft because this draft is from 3 years ago.
Yeah, he was saying some stuff on that panel. It was like, oh, Beastmaster Venge Drow. I was like, what?
Yeah. Let's go back to the old-fashioned aura strats. That's what it's all about.
Anyways,
yeah.
I was very surprised to see a Drow come out last. I didn't really expect it to fit the pace, especially against the push of the DK and the Luna, but hopefully they can pull it out.
Well, Gus started to talk about, like, maybe it's a little bit more about the earlier timing. Is that the idea behind it? You're not looking for the boost up on the, at least on the Mirana, unless you're going to see EE-style Mirana appear for WG, but maybe just give you that little bit of extra push into the tier 1 towers earlier.
It's just very difficult, though, versus Luna. I think Luna can maybe push it a little bit earlier, at least better at 5 manning, I would say, than a Drow Ranger, although Drow does apply way more split pressure. I think that's the most disappointed I've ever seen you when a Drow was picked.
Well, normally I'm looking for the combinations to work with it. I'm looking for the early push. But what I do like, actually, is at least the matchup. Tidehunter doesn't have an easy time up against the Drow once she's able to get that second level up in the Ice Arrows. And having the easy roaming combination of the SD lets them set up right, like, for exactly this. Disruption in, they go for the crush, and then into the arrow with the extra stun. They'll even get a little hit down to Gabby. But it's WG that spills the first blood.
I wonder if he was considering skilling up Kraken Shell. Might have saved him. 600 damage threshold, probably not, actually.
I don't think destroyed his laning phase as well.
Yeah.
Instead, so WG, with the death of that Tidehunter, this opens them up to at least get 2 of the runes. But they don't get them all. You've already got SK sitting on top of the rune, and that's up next to the Dire shop. So Nana can say hello. Kangaroo's in the neighborhood too, but this is going to be the dual lane. Or at least the dual supports roaming around with the SK as well as the Dazzle.
Well, they traded. The Shadow Demon got the left side rune, so 2 for each team.
So into the lanes we go, and Nyx Assassin off lane. Haven't seen much of that this tournament, if at all. How's it meant to work up against this, at the moment, a defensive tri lane?
It was unusual when they picked it up. I believe it was just versus like the Sand King Luna +1, and normally you'll see it versus Bat. I would say it's by far the most common. Sometimes OD and like Quap, but versus their lineup, it doesn't seem particularly good. Like, how are you going to actually burst the DK down? Your Vendetta and your combo is only going to do like 400 damage to him.
So I'm wondering if he's more there to try and bring down the supports, like take care of that Dazzle, take care of maybe the SK.
It's very difficult, though, because I think later on in the game, Execration is going to group up. Their lineup is completely built for that. The Dazzle for the sustain, the Luna and the DK for the push.
Kangaro's in a lot of trouble, and there isn't actually a lot of way out of this one. He'll turn for a triple stun, but already dead. As the Nyx will say, pick him off, and Afu just walks straight into the middle of him. They go for another Burrow Strike, already with the Poison Touch. The Slatter's not going to be very healthy. Tanks a lot of damage here. This would make more sense if you're just going to move over to the Shrine if Nyx Assassin was still alive, but he's not.
I'd like to see an early Blightstone pickup on the Dazzle. Sometimes you'll see that in this type of lane where you're just very physical based, especially with the Luna, and it also helps with the tower pushing because Luna almost never buys a Blightstone. to aid in the tower push. But I'm not sure if he's going to be rich enough. As cheap as it is, it's still a luxury item for him.
Yeah, because then it'd have to be a sacrifice for someone like the SK who went boots first, so he's already gone for the rather greedier style of build. DJ's at least getting a little bit of experience up on top lane. This is something which is going to change for him, and I look towards the stacks of Execration at that point, because Ajit's just going to be all over him. He's already got the wand as well as boots, and the cold arrow levels are going to start coming very soon too. Gabby, okay, that's dropping low.
But there's only one hero up there. I would like to see the Tidehunter, like, you know, sometimes you just go up there a little bit more just to make sure that
Courier, if he can get to it. Looks like Arfu's going to be finding the DK, but SD never actually made his little play over. And Gabby will just trigger off the Shrine.
Do you think Shrine should have a hotkey? It's been a hotly disputed thing.
As long as you can do it nice and quick on the ones. Okay, bottom lane, Kanga's in even more trouble. They've still got a lose and beam available, so he's not going to get back under, or maybe with a Spike Carapace and the follow-up stun. Kanga, no, he's going to go down. SK still with too much power, having that core stick there for the extra burst. Oh, and required one more hit to get the kill, and yeah, you could lean towards the Shrine, so you just stop clicking it off. Maybe from priority for the laners, so the off-laners doesn't have a support, just trigger it randomly. Gabby is in a lot of hurt. Start with the disruption. You got the arrow. They're going to start off with that one, so it's a little bit more different to the lineup they had before, and then follow into the crush. Still not enough damage trying to attack uphill, even with the double damage room that's over on Nana. Maybe it is. Gabby took a long time to get away from the edge of the cliff, so he'll go down. Arfu's coming back in again too. He has the crush available, looking towards the SK, but he misses the crush. The damage is still potentially there from Nana, but he can't go onto the tier 1 tower. Not with the life that he's got.
That was a 2-unit trap with the disruption. That's very hard to pull off. I've seen 3 before in like open area, but this was right next to the cliff, and his teammates didn't really know that he was trapped, or it seemed like none of them helped him kill the illusions at all, just waiting for it to time out. But those last for 8 seconds. And they didn't miss on that uphill last hit. But normally it would be extremely difficult to kill that DK. He almost survived throughout that entire thing.
But they don't find the kills on the rest of WG, so they move over, they Shrine up, and then go straight back into the laning phase once again.
They need to get a lot of kills. You need to slow down the Luna timing as much as possible.
Well, they're doing that pretty nicely, and they're doing it without having to commit any heroes to protect the Drow Ranger. Tidehunter, DJ's managed to hit his level 4, so at least with that, they've found space for the Tide. But Drow, when she hits that level 6, this Tide has to move off the lane. Like, if any kind of support rotates over, he should be dead.
I think it's okay, though, because the Shadow Demon and the Mirana, you want to split these two up as much as possible. You want the Shadow Demon to be up top, forcing the Tidehunter out a little bit, but like as of right now, the Tide isn't getting that much. Drow is getting a lot, and they're getting kills on the opposite side of the map. So this early game, I think, is shaping up to be much better than expected for WG Unity.
They can just keep that momentum going. But again, these 3 heroes grouping up from Execration on the bottom lane.
Ours.
I don't know if they really want to force into the tower. There's still a lot of life to get through from the Nyx Assassin and Slaughter if they want to try and pressure into the building.
Yeah, Nyx Assassin went for the 2 carapace build. I think it's by far the better build in this lane. You don't want the 1 point in the mana burn. Very, very useless.
Ajit, I'm waiting for him now to do it. He just cracked his level 6, so this is what I was waiting for him. This is what I was waiting for Tidehunter to die. He's still got his Gust available as well, if he wants to use it. So DJ into the tree line. Ajit's going to find it, loses a lot of his damage because he gets hit by the Anchor Smash. But those 3 points up in cold arrows already, it does the work. But bottom lane, a great initiation with the stun. You got the Burrow Shot to create a little bit of space in Shallow Grave, maybe also some time, but time is not really on their side. The kill still happens up on the top, where the SD rotated in, but Nana going underneath the tower. The SK with a Burrow Strike, Nana's in too deep, leaps away. The tower attack's still going to follow him up. With the bottle charges, he's getting a little bit more life back. Lost that movement speed in a bit, and the Burrow Strike. SK trying to catch up from the TP's coming over the Shrines, but SK already finishes the job.
Maybe he didn't see that stick, just thinking, oh, there's no way he can stun me. But he had stick charges right there. It definitely helps that Drow Ranger was level 6, now level 7 for that engagement. That 1 extra right click from the Mirana. She didn't have to blow her leap early to finish off the Dazzle. Made a big difference.
Not this time.
Can't take my eyes off this top lane for the moment. I'm wondering if WG even try and force the lane down. Tai can drag the creep wave back out, but if you've got SD in, illusions. Maybe they can do more, but this bottom lane pressure with Gabby down here, the tier 1 tower is being peppered too much. WG need to do something about this if they want to hold their tier 1. It's either that or they look for some kind of other gank, and that's potentially in the middle lane, which is exactly what happens. Disruption, arrow flies down, and hits perfectly, 5-second stun. And the SK will evaporate. Gabby is still trying to force that tier 1 tower on bot lane. But now losing the extra hero, they realize where the gank happened.
I think it's good that they're using the Drow as a sort of fighter too. She, as you mentioned, the max cold arrows instead of maxing the precision aura. 1 point already gives you 20%, and then the last 3 points give you 18% total. So it's actually quite the value point, but not a very common build.
Middle lane, DJ, he has enough mana if he wants to use it. He'll need more help. Ravage is enough to do his work as Afu, while the stuns create more space on bottom lane. The support's finally coming into that middle lane. Burrow strike in from the SK. Remember, Ravage is still there. They commit it for Mirana. She's got leap into 1 charge. Just goes up the hill, and Nana is away. Execration without the lockdown, but SK does have the movement speed until he stops and just watches Nana walk.
Only level 2 stun. It's been desperately trying to pick up some levels.
He still didn't have any other friends to help him out. They all backed out. Now it's disruption, and again, we're going to do this. Arrow, it looked a little too early, but it still hits the mark. SK will drop, and this will be a tier 1 tower to boot.
This
With
is
no
exactly
Ravage
what
up,
they
they
need.
can't fight.
This is their second tower, so the team without the DK Luna is actually ahead in terms of towers. And maybe this is what they were talking about with the Drow pick. It's going to hit a little bit earlier, especially if they can pressure the lanes so hard. I really like the movement from the support duo from WG. The Shadow Demon is just pressuring all 3 lanes. It's not like the organized type of push that you want from Execration. It's like, okay, every single timing with Eclipse, with Dragon Form, you go down, you take a tower, you farm, do whatever for a few minutes, and then you just repeat once your ultimates are up. But they haven't really been able to do that. Everything's been a little bit staggered. They haven't even used Eclipse yet. Ravage didn't yield that prized Mirana kill that they're looking for.
Without the Ravage we're talking about, oh, Luna, this could be real trouble for Nando. So much slow with the crush. Not to mention, a little extra help. It's going to be WG bringing him down. Now, does Execration just let this tower go? Because right now, they're staring down the barrel, losing all their tier 1 towers by the 10-minute mark, with Drow Ranger appearing on bottom.
You're going to lose Roche very soon, though, if you lose this. It just takes 1 bad Ravage, or a Ravage just like we saw in the Mirana, to yield something like that. So this will be the 3rd tower, it looks like, already.
Yeah, that's what I'm just like wondering, like, how do you even defend it? Like, they go for the opposite thing. They go for the DK to move to top, use that Dragon Form to try and force down the lane.
Generally, you group up as 5, but their other lanes are just pushed so far in that they can't actually do that. So they're going to have to group up as a few. But Nyx is 6. They don't have sentries down.
Oh, look for the stun. The arrow is able to connect. They just hold him there. Now it's up to Miranda to tank through a lot of the damage from her. She's still got 1 charges, plus the Moonlight Shadow. In comes the SK, having to create space. Afu was looking for the perfect crush, couldn't get it. They're still underneath that sentry ward, and it's done some work for DK. Tidehunter is here. Ravage is in 6 seconds time, and 6 seconds may be a little bit too far out, especially when Arjit arrives to the front. And 1 second, the gust hits 4 heroes. They're not looking to dive under the tier 1 tower. They want to still stay fighting underneath that sentry.
Dragon Form is almost down. They're going to have to press this pretty aggressively if they want this tower. Cliff is down, so...
They're in range for a 2-hit Ravage. DJ lets it rip, able to hit the Nyx Assassin, plus the SD Burrow Strike, making sure SD can't go anywhere, or maybe he can with the Purge and the Cold Arrows. He gets Disruption off. Nova's on the run out of here. DJ dropping down low. Arjit changes his target to kill off the Dazzle with the Starfall from Nana. They have enough damage, so the DK will fall as well. They lose almost the whole kit and caboodle, but none. You have Nando on the bottom lane.
My god, X-Nova was so farmed, but you don't expect the Shadow Demon to be that tanky. Like, he had raindrops. He's like pretty high up there in net worth because of all these towers. He's very similar to the Tidehunter in terms of net worth. They thought they were just going to be able to get that kill, but because they had a press for that last 100, 150 HP, they were in a terrible, terrible spot as Mirana came out.
Bottom lane, I don't think Nando even realized it was coming his way. Kangaroo, does he try and go for the hit? You've got Slater coming in. He'll actually get the Vendetta, hit the crush, and out of position! This will allow for the Eclipse to hit. Almost the Eclipse killing him. There's a Shallow Grave to protect the Luna, to follow into that Lucent Beam. So he already picked off the Nyx Assassin. Afu still on the run. Oh boy, that Spire Carapace could have bit the Luna in the butt, but it still works for him. As Luna survives, finds a much-needed kill in space.
Yeah, they scanned there, so they were more than ready for that. I thought they were about to drop a sentry, but Nando was in that critical HP range that was just too enticing.
It's almost like you're just having the faith of the Dazzle be right behind you.
Yeah, normally you're like, okay, whatever, at least we got the Luna, but
yeah.
Even if you know that they're probably going to counter gank you.
Gold for me.
Well, so this is now the first time where WG is not the one creating space with kills. Execration is still grouped up as 4. The Tidehunter is the only one who's kind of out by himself, trying to complete up that mechanism. This will give a little bit more power for Execration to do that 5-man maneuver you're talking about.
Yeah, they're actually not as strong in the team fight just because WG had such a good early game. And Mirana has her scepter completed. Looking at her stash, my goodness. That's crazy. 6 kills, 12 minutes in is one of the earlier timings that you'll see.
Wow.
Yeah, they're actually in a lot of trouble. And he's going for a Mech Knight, a pipe, so this double Starfall is going to make quick work of the Dragon Knight. And Luna has a bit of HP, but she is going to be a prime target to burst down.
Even with that little bit of HP, is the fact that Dro Ranger is also progressing very, very quickly. Went for the extra stats, giving out that bonus damage of 58. So even though Nana's got a lot of magical burst damage, you've also got that physical damage behind him too.
Yep.
On top of the haze, which you get out from Slaughter. So everything's just starts to amplify.
Execration is also just spread thin. They can't afford armor items, like they're trying to in the mech, but they can't buy a flash. There's no like medallion. They also want probably BKBs at some point to deal with the Nyx assassin.
Moonlight Shadow, they're coming in close. There's a sentry ward inside the lane. Nana just starts off with the Starfall, gets rid of the creep wave. Thanks to the Observer and Sentry down from Execration, they do understand the Nyx assassin is hovering around behind them.
I like how they're positioning though. They're playing very well around the Ravage. Like bad positioning is everyone sitting behind the tower, but they have a couple in the lane, a couple on the right side. Nyx trying to swoop in from behind just to make it a multi-pronged attack, which makes it very difficult for even a hero like Sand King, I think, to get a good initiation.
So then you have Epicenter as well as Ravage become a bit of a
there you stand, nothing. Right next to the Roshan pit, but if they see Luna up top, they know that they're not in Rosh, so they're not scared.
Instead, maybe they're wondering about any kind of aggressive ward, but it was just a movement up to get the rune, nothing more.
Yeah, they know it's about that timing that they need to get the Blink Dagger on the Slardar, because he's very likely to die in these fights, because he's kind of their primary strength thrower that's going to be in the middle of the fray.
The hunt is on again. Nyx Assassin may become the prey. There's a sentry ward there. They're trying to bait him deeper into it. There starts off your Burrow Strike. Arrows flying in, 2 with the Gust, hitting on 3. Nyx Assassin, Spire Carapace, create space, in for the double stun. Archit can now do a little bit of work. You've also got the Dazzle in through the rear. He's got Shallow Grave available, have to self-grave, which took so much damage from the Starfall of Nana. And Archit needs to back out of here before another Dragon Tail stun can be thrown. And they're able to do so, so Dragon Form is baited.
Archit with these Gusts, though, just could not be at a better time. Even losing the next one would be the worst thing in the world because he is only level 7, so he'd respawn in probably 30 seconds or so. And it's still, Afu didn't even TP in. He knows that his priority is getting this Blink Dagger. If Nyx dies, it's okay, as long as he gets this Blink Dagger next 1 or 2 minutes, or else it's going to be like a 20-25 minute timing.
Yeah. Now, the only time he came over was maybe at the end where he thought he can get a quick pick off, and that would have almost get him to his Blink Dagger, but bring him very close to it.
Yeah, they also just don't have that good of catch. Sand King on the opposite side is also working on his Blink Dagger, but he's very, very far away. Without the Sand King jump, they just don't really have any threats to worry about.
I'm liking the efficiency build coming in from the Dro. So you went for the Dragonlance as well as the Yasha, and you're not completing either into like the full Hurricane or even into the Manta. He's already looking to go straight into the BKB. So then Ravage and Epi become a complete non-factor.
I also like the Max Cold Arrow build. He was doing the Ancients, and now that they're not magic immune, it actually makes it much easier for her to do it without lifesteal. So normally you'll only see Drows do it with what before was the old Helm of the Dominator, but now you don't need lifesteal, you don't need Mask of Madness, you can just right-click them down and kite them.
The advantage of the Dro. A little bit more complicated to play than just the easy stuff. Casual Morbid Mask style.
The prize is mine.
I still think Mask of Madness is decent on her, but maybe not with the Frost Arrows.
It's just more efficient with your transition of items, because you're not going to hold on to the Mask of Madness into the late game.
Yeah. But the attack speed.
The attack speed is beautiful. And then you get then you hit level 15 and you get plus 20 attack speed anyway.
Or you could just get Mirana to get the leap talent.
Yeah, that will also help. We haven't even... If this game does go long, that would probably be even a scarier thing for Execration. The fact that you could still work your way into something like an Aghanim Scepter with the already powerful Drow Ranger plus a buff up from a Mirana. I don't think anyone will want to face up against that.
Her Gust talent is actually really good. I tried it out one time. I was like, what? 350 is like, is 350 really that much? But when you see it, they just move so far back. And that late in the game, BKBs are generally quite low. So Gust is very, very strong.
But you needed something like that. Like, Drow always had those issues of one hero that would just get so, like, up in the face, the Slark, the PAs, things like that, the Clockworks. So it was her escape, is the best way to put it. That's easy Roshan for WG. They'll put the Aegis Immortal into the Drow Ranger. And they will keep the status quo because the status quo is very much in their favor.
It's not looking good for Execration though. They want to fight with the Tidehunter. Like, when have we seen like a big Ravage Eclipse? It just hasn't happened yet this game. They haven't been given the opportunity to do so, and now they just feel scared. Like, if we push and then we fail with our ultimates, we'll probably just lose the game. But if they don't strike now, when are they actually going to hit?
Yeah.
Maybe in between the next Aegis, I would say.
I'll take that.
That's still a long time to be down and just let everyone else farm up.
Yeah.
Because then you want to push, but by that point, everyone's going to have their BKBs. And actually, Drow Ranger changed her item build. She is going to finish up the Hurricane Pike. So she actually bypassed going for the BKB. Well, with the Aegis Immortal, it makes sense. If Execration aren't going to fight you for the next 5 minutes, you'll have more than enough time to farm up the rest of the BKB on Arjit.
Yep. And it looks like this will be the time for Execration to start making their first move. No Blink Dagger yet on the Tidehunter, but they do have one on the Sand King in the back line, and now they're wrapping around behind the end.
This is a great position for them. If they can catch out WG's back line, but at the same time, that's exactly what WG is looking for. They're pushing in deeper into that Radiant jungle. And the smoke, well, it's not going to last so much longer if... well, there's the break. They get close enough to the SD. Now Moonlight Shadow triggers for WG. They realize what's up. A quick sentry ward. Arjit walking in range. He's going to get cushed up, but he's already over the Titan. If he can keep that actually silence on DJ, DJ will get the Ravage off. It's quite decent. Gabby doing the work with the Breathe Fire in the epicenter. The damage is huge. Turn on the Eclipse as well. A 2-for-1 trade-off. Arjit still keeping that distance thanks to X-Nova. They can turn around a little bit, but no, they'll burn the Aegis to the Immortal. He'll come back to life again in a second, but no real friends around apart from Nana. Nana jumps in for the double Starfall. The damage, is it enough? No, 76, 65 life in the tree lines. The arrow even searching for Nando. He's still alive on 29. Sign the TP. It won't be in time. But Gabby, Armless toggles his way through. They already found the other kill onto the Drow Ranger. And now it's all up to the death of the Mirana. And they're going to get her. Gabby will survive. And Execration will come out on top of the fight.
WG were just not prepared for that Ravage. I think the Slaughter blinked in, the Mirana leapt in, and then she blinked out, or she blinked in and then she leapt out. But their two supports just got eliminated by that Tidehunter, and then it was 3v5. Even with the Aegis, it wasn't enough.
Speaking of the Tidehunter, he has no TP, he has no real mana to work with, and Afu's also coming inside. Oh, okay. Well, he's got that to work with. Into the trees, but he didn't go down far enough, so it is a dead DJ.
It's okay, it doesn't lose any gold.
I was actually waiting for the timing on the Gust from the Drow Ranger. Like, she was attacking into the Tidehunter before that last fight began, but
so
it never came.
I thought they were going to Gust the Tide and then go on everyone else, which would have been, I think, the best thing for them to do. Like, if you're attacking the Tidehunter, he's just guaranteed to get his Ravage off because Kraken's just going to proc. So that was a little strange from them. They also had an Observer Ward right on top of them. I think it expired like during the fight, but during the beginning of the fight, they definitely saw the smoke pop and the supports there. But I don't think the Drow Ranger was on the same page with the rest of the team because Mirana also went for the backline. Salter also went for the backline. It was only the Drow Ranger attacking the Tidehunter.
Yeah.
And I think they fully expected the same thing. They were clumped up expecting a Ravage to not be available.
Yeah. And then WG would have had a lot stronger fight. But instead, they group up as 4 with that small little skirmish up on the top. But so much damage from a Drow range with the illusions from the SD. And a catapult behind. Yeah, DJ has to jump up and do something about it. So be the tier 2 tower potentially denied. But this is what WG want. WG can easily gain control of this map test, take out tower by tower. That's what the Drow is meant to achieve.
I think denying T2s is not that great,
Gabby?
though.
This looks a little bit optimistic. Spy Carapace TP out. SK gets there just in the nick of time with a blink forward. And the kill. They catch out the next assassin. Thought he was fine with the Spy Carapace, especially when Dragon tells the initiation of the DK.
Yeah, with the blink on the DK, they can actually just get all up in the Drow Ranger space. And I think he's tanky enough that he doesn't actually have to worry about like the amp right click nor the Mirana double starfall. And if he can get to that point where he can just blink in with or without BKB onto the Drow Ranger, and then Luna can just kind of walk in with the clips after, they're going to be in a really bad spot. They might need another 4-stab to help out the Drow Ranger, or better, a BKB on him.
Yeah, the BKB timing is what we're looking at. And maybe that fight also would have been very different if he didn't finish up the Hurricane as opposed to going for the BKB. Same for Nana. Now Nana has to Moonlight Shadow and get away. He is far enough away that they won't be able to use any kind of detection on her. But the pressure onto the top lane now creates more space. So the Slander's getting his space on bottom lane. He's also got BKB on his wish list.
The prize is mine.
And Nana just needs another 200, and he's got his.
The BKB is one approach. Another approach that some teams do is the Silver Edge. If you can Silver Edge the DK, firstly, he can't just destroy your Drow Ranger, and secondly, you get rid of the Dragon's Blood, so you can just turn around. With Amp, he's going to be well into the negatives, I would say. So that might be something that you're looking for into the later game. Another option is to go for a Scepter split push build, so you don't actually have to fight into the team fight. That was before the Blink Dagger on the Tidehunter. Now that he has that, and they have a lot more farm with the Luna and DK, who've been constantly farming the Ancients, like, I think they're at a huge disadvantage in the 5-on-5. That was with the Aegis. So without the Aegis, and with BKBs, it might be a little bit even, but at the same time, I think they have probably, actually, I don't even know if they have better late game, so that might not be the best choice for them.
Yeah, both teams actually have a lot to work with. We've seen, we could look at MP's performance of Luna earlier on in this tournament, just how much work a Luna can do when I think they were like 20,000 behind, and they were still able to hold their own and almost bring back the game. Yeah, so never underestimate the late game power that comes from the Luna.
The thing about Luna is if you just take like 1 or 2 heroes down, like actually fighting at your T3s is very disadvantageous because the glaives just bounce in between the buildings, and it's very difficult to actually approach the Luna. I think that's why she's one of the best siegers right now.
Well, Execration going to start the push into the Tier 2 tower in mid. WG not in the greatest position to try and fight it yet, but they do have that BKB over on the Mirana. Drow Ranger's still short of her own, and they're chasing a Tidehunter illusion to the top. But DJ waits in the tree line right behind his DK, and they can keep going. The arrow flies in, a 5-second stun actually on Nintendo, but no one's going to follow into this.
Yeah, they still have a healthy amount of time left on the Dragon form, but it looks like they don't want to lose any more structures.
Yeah, they're moving up to defend the top lane. SD's already doing his SD illusion thing. He's not using a Luna, he's using the Drow instead.
Yeah, he needs to be able to get the Luna, so I think actually getting Blink Dagger on him is a very high priority this game, so he can keep on doing it on cooldown and perhaps force her to get a BKB, which would be ideal if you're a WG. Execration, I think they're just comfortable constantly farming up the Ancients. They have the HOD. They've been power farming the Ancients for a good 10 minutes or so. Luna was well behind the Drow Ranger. Now she's further ahead and closing in on the Mirana.
After it was just a little bit late there. DK realized what was going on, and he backed out as quickly as possible. Execration very tight together. Fight with the Ravage, fight with the mech. Never give WG the real opportunity to get the advantage early on in the fight. Use their big stuns and burst damage. As I say burst damage, I'm meaning the big physical damage which comes out.
It's getting a little scary. WG have their BKBs, but if they don't pop their BKBs before the Ravage, they'll get stun locked or Epicenter Burrow Strike during the Ravage and all die. So I don't really think they want to take that risk right now because a fight like that could mean multiple buybacks and potentially a game-ending push with the Luna. So it's much safer for them to at least wait for the Aegis. I think that Execration can't take it out that fast. They don't have the amp available to them.
But also grabbing the Aegis. Like, Execration have that shrine right next to it, so if they want to buy back and they want to contest Roshan, they have everything they really need to do so.
Buybacks aren't as strong for them, though, than for WG, because once their ultimates are down, like, if Tidehunter buys back, it's not that big a deal. Luna won't have Eclipse.
Oh, so close. He blinked over the top. The arrow will fly out from the tree line, and now they realize exactly where he is. And this is a very, very dead Mirana. He leaps up, and no! The SK was waiting. The damage was already being done from the Shadow Poison.
Theoretically, BKB TP would be great if he wasn't in the middle of 4 or 5 heroes.
Small issues, but allows Execration to force into the tier 2 tower up on top lane.
They need some damage on his T3 on bottom. Nyx Assassin is the one there, and if at least get some free damage while you're waiting for the Mirana to wait, but they might want him for the base defense.
Well, they're going to need him. There's no Mirana for 40 seconds with no buyback available. This is all up to WG to keep him out. Afu's in a good position to get a good Blink Crush off if they realize this, with the SD illusions of Dro. Also mops up most of the creep wave that was pushing in, but now, this is what we're talking about with the Siege. The Lunar Glaze bounce on through, and the Ravage is huge! Hitting on 4 with elusive beams. FP's to follow up. Fire Carpets at least keep in position a little bit longer, but the Glaze are doing so much work, and Arjun can't do any real big level of damage. He did it on the DK, who just armor toggles it back out. They need to get some extra kills now. Execration are bailing as quickly as they possibly can. The Weave will hit on WG, and they just turn on the Eclipse. Afu gets some space, but in comes Nyx Assassin, the double sum with the Spike Carapace. They want to go for more. The Burrow Strike is in, and here we go with one-on-one. Maybe Arjun can push the SKE cannon with that gust out of the Sandstorm. But the Slaughter, blind Blink Crush, looking for the TPs out. Able to get the Haze onto the Dazzle, but more movement. Still 6 seconds until the Hurricane Pikes off cooldown for the Dro range to get in range, and it won't matter. The arrow will connect, the Dazzle will fall. The range racks was removed up on top lane, but some costly buybacks from WG.
Yeah, they had to retreat because the weave fell off. Like, with the weave up, their right clicks were futile, especially without the Mirana down. So, at the end of the day, with the buybacks, I would say slight edge to WG because they didn't lose a melee Rex, and they also will get Roshan.
Yeah.
And that was without the Mirana, so I think that they're actually in a decent position. That was a great Ravage by DJ. Like, you want to do it, like, right before, like, if you do it after a DK initiation, everyone's going to BKB. So you want to do it when like nothing's really happening, because that's really difficult to BKB. Like even some of them were like at the edge of the Ravage, but they still weren't able to BKB it because you're like, how does he know all 4 of us are over here?
I'm actually wondering too how WG handled the next fight with Nando having a 10-second BKB on that Luna. My DJ's getting very aggressive up in the face of the Dro.
I really like that initiation though from the Stardar. Like,
oh, Nana, he jumped in, Gabby in dragon form. He was moving up at the cover of Invis, but that BKB will protect the Blink Crush. DJ gets a good anchor smash off. Dro Rage will break free with her own BKB, but the damage output not really that terrific for the moment. Gabby wants to find something, the Pyro Strike, but Nana blinks away just in time. And Slaughter is in more trouble. Stunned up, the Elusive Beam holds him in position. They can move over towards the Dro Ranger. If that stun from the Nyx Assassin doesn't do so much work, not to mention the arrow onto the Dazzle. There's no Shallow Grave available from him. They're not actually killing him off, so he can grave up, and he does it over on Gabby. They didn't focus down the target. This will give Gabby a little bit more time to be into Nana, but it's Archit doing so much work on the Dro Ranger. Just sitting in the back lines. And Execration able to complete the kills they wanted. The Mirana a while out, but the gust is too big. Ty can't follow up until now. He breaks free with the Ravage hitting on 2. SK's back in with the arrow. It connects on DJ. The follow-ups on Kangaroos in the perfect position just to hop through. And he'll also find the target on Willie. SK Burrow strikes out with the Nyx Assassin. Spike Carapace, another spanner in the works. And WG not only on top of this fight, they dominated, and now they're the ones attacking into the base of Execration.
Execration smelled blood. They almost had the stun on the Mirana, but then she blinked out and just lured them to that position after the Luna's BKB had already expired. Maybe they thought that the Ravage was about to come up because it was really close to being off cooldown, but Mirana just did incredible amounts of damage that fight and it kited them to oblivion.
And you see just how fast WG can push. They win one fight and they take the entire mid-racks.
They need more items on the Luna. I think Butterfly is mandatory, I think, before the next big fight for her. And probably AC, I would say, on the Dragon Knight, maybe a Mjolnir. Either or, I think, would be acceptable for them. But I think they're lacking in terms of damage. Like, a lot of it is actually from the Tidehunter Epicenter, or Tidehunter and Epicenter combo from them. And this is where you need your other cores to start doing damage because of the BKBs out on the Dire side. And Nyx Assassin's still proving to be useful despite not being an excellent matchup versus any of their heroes. Just the constant stuns and a thorn in their side once their BKBs are down.
It's like he just stops Execration from following all the time. Like you come in, you get your Epicenter off, and then you got to stay in one position.
Yeah, he just like blinks at them all of it. It's like,
It's like, well,
what are you guys going to do?
Got enough life to tank through it. Next Assassin's getting a lot of money, and he's actually picking up a 4-star, so he can come in, get that Spike Carapace off, and then still get away to safety soon.
They also need to save the Drought Ranger. I think it's very important that she stays alive. She dies in most of these fights, and she's had the Aegis and her own Force Staff and BKB. So I think additional tools are necessary. Maybe even a Glimmer Cape I think would be very useful if they can.
It's kind of funny when we say such a thing, and then you look at it when she bypasses. Like she gets 175 health, doesn't get the 14 strength, just is like gets the aura to help out. Plus 6% in the aura. It's gonna be a lot easier once you get the 25% marksman up.
Or the Gust knockback.
Or the Gust knockback.
It sounds crappy, but it's really good.
Yeah, marksmanship just sounds so much better though.
Yeah, it does. But she's already doing a lot of damage. She's already hitting for 348. I guess you're giving your creeps and your other heroes precision aura, so it's far more than 25 damage.
Slana was trying to hunt a courier for a short period of time.
Perfect.
It just depends on whether or not she thinks, like, if they're up in her face, the marksmanship is useless, right?
Yeah.
So I think, like, by getting Gus back, you're actually giving yourself more marksmanship uptime, which it kind of depends on how strong she is relative to the DK and the Luna. But, like, the DK's job is to, like, get on top of the Drought Ranger to stop her marksmanship aura. And I think this is going to be much easier for him, especially when he gets the level 25 talent, the 2x Dragon Blood HP regen. That talent is ridiculously good, especially if they don't have a Silver Edge, which I don't see any signs of them building yet. I don't know if it's going to get to that point, but it is something to consider later on, 10, 15 minutes into the game.
Well, Drought Ranger is probably the only one out of their entire lineup that would actually build such a thing.
Yeah, I think Slardar could if he finishes BKB. I think
he's still been working on that BKB for the last 15, almost 20 minutes.
He has his hammer, and then he'll have his BKB recipe and 300 gold. But I think that he could also get an AC. I think AC might be just more standard.
It would allow WG if like a little bit more strength in the fight, but then when the push comes high ground time, then it's gonna shred apart the Execration base. Drought Ranger's also got the Talisman of Evasion now. She could buy the full butterfly, but wouldn't have buyback if she did it. So just saving a little bit of money for the moment.
Radiant's top tower.
Yeah, she only needs a few hundred gold for the quarterstaff, so definitely don't think it's worth her buying right now, although it is a very big power increase.
Execration. They want to come out.
Radiant's top tower.
All the waves for them are already fairly pushed out, so WG may not be as aware of this 5-man maneuver is on the way as they walk right over the top of a Dire Observer Ward. So you leave the Lunar Illusions to push in the mid. But yeah, okay, WG know that something is up. They're already starting to back away.
Yeah, Kangaroo's ready to pop the smoke and then just blink 4-step out. So he will protect the 4 heroes on the top side. Now the only vulnerable hero is Nana on the bottom, which Execration are all heading for. Can they blow him up? He has a Lincoln Sphere, so it's actually...
They have to be quick. Like, he's got both Blink, Lincolns, and Leap. That's a very difficult target to get, and now they may even just use him as bait because WG, they 4-man smoke up, and they're looking for the fight. It's like they want to take this fight.
Well, this is a good position for them to take as long as they know where the Tidehunter is. However, they don't know where the Sand King is. Sand King's like pretty far in the back. I don't know if he's going to hide in the trees.
They see Nana. Quick sentry ward down. The Observe ward gets planted by WG, so they've got some good vision on the side. They know that Execration's just sitting in the trees. So they jump forward. They wait for the bait forward. SK Gust well off target. The arrow flies forward. It's a 5-second stun over on DJ. This is the opening that maybe WG wanted. Defensive disruption must come out, but Arjit beating into Nando. Now the Ravage. It comes over. The damage is there, but it's only on the one hero. It's only on the Slider, but maybe with the SK reaching the Drought Ranger. She doesn't have a Hurricane Pike up. She'll fall. There's no buyback for either of the heroes. Even Gabby blinks on the hillside. He'll get the retreating Kangaroo, and now maybe they can do some damage into the base.
Well, they thought they had way better positioning because of the Tidehunter getting hit by the arrow. Perhaps they wanted to go in. Drought Ranger used her Force Staff to get out of the Ravage, but then she just ate an Epicenter Burrow Strike because she didn't actually BKB the Ravage. And that was
Arrow. Nana looks for the quick pick, able to get on the SK, not possible. Dazzle doing the regen. Not to mention the shallow grave save, and then a quick BKB TP away to safety. That's an 8-second BKB, just to try and create a little bit of space with one pick off.
And this should be the Luna's Butterfly after winning that last fight.
In fact, it is. It's over in the stash. She's got the rest of it sitting on in her own backpack.
And Roshan just respawned. Nando had a dominate creep in there, but he just dominated Wolf. So only the Radiant side know that Roshan is up.
Gold for me.
Well, WG will have to go over and scan it pretty soon.
Yeah, even with the butterfly, the Drow Ranger just seems very flimsy, I would say.
Yeah. And they're pumping up for more damage. You don't have any real major stat items. You got 2.1k on her. She still didn't finish with the Manta. You didn't get any other, like, big life item apart from what's inside the Hurricane Pike.
It's because she committed very heavily to physical damage, which is probably not the greatest idea, I would say, versus the Dazzle and the Dragon Knight. I think the Ag's Maelstrom would scale way better. I think they would have a much rougher time in a 15 to 25 minute, but now after, like, they have tons of armor items, it's also not good versus BKBs, but it also helps you farm a lot faster. So it's just kind of a difference in builds. And they don't have that many ranged heroes. They only have 3. Shadow Demon's pretty much not going to be right-clicking heroes ever. So it's only 2 heroes, which I think the marksmanship build isn't as good for the mass agility.
SD just gets more farm by creating the illusions to the Drow Ranger. That's how he's getting all of his.
But you already have a good target is in the Luna to disrupt most of the time.
Instead of actually buffing up your Drow Ranger so she becomes that target.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering, like, if you'd see the Aghanims and Maelstrom, like, just to get rid of any kind of I think even the Manta illusions of Luna are causing issues.
I think it would have been better. Sometimes even like small things like the Mjolnir proccing on a blink target in the far back can just completely ruin your fight, and that happens more often than you think.
That's true, like there's nothing to really stop the Tidehunter from getting his jump in every time, and they're looking to another one. Nana, they trigger off the Lincoln Sphere, jump forward, supports the neighborhood, there goes your Ravage on the back lines. SD gets hit pretty hard by that one, but the BKB allows Nana to jump away with the Moonlight Shadow. Maybe they can get some distance now, WG. They already lost that SD who sacrificed himself.
That was a very necessary play, though. Your Mirana's buyback is way more important than Shadow Demon right now.
But this will allow Execration to jump into Roshan. And WG, with scouting arrows, they should be able to do something about it. The buyback comes, they TP over towards the shrine, actually triggering up early. DJ in very, very close. The arrow flies in. It only hits on Roshan. Apu jumps in deep too. Remember, DJ doesn't have that Ravage this time around, so they leap forward, let that Starfall damage do its work, but you've already lost your Slaughter, and Nando wants to keep these bounces going if he can. They're hiding inside the pit. Will bounce in there. Kangaroo, the damage is too much. Archik, Burrow Strike too. They can't even get the Drow Ranger to do the damage. It's all Execration with the epicenter, killing them off in the trees. The TPs continue to come in towards the shrine. They're isolated there as we get a quick pause. DJ stopped moving, and that may be one of the primary reasons, but they keep wanting to fight underneath the shrine. WG have committed to this.
Very tense moment in the game as WG commit mass buybacks and probably plan their next attack. They're all around the shrine.
WG, they want to go. Let's go straight back into the game right now. Execration and WG will start back in. DJ, he's actually just trapped inside the tree line there. Another Burrow Strike into the Shadow Demon. Losing beams. It's like X-Nova just can't move. The Spire Carapace doing some work, but Gabby, his BKB is up, and Nana is losing his life too quickly. The arrows are almost meaninless, and DJ is taunting in the middle of the fight. WG committed so much to this, and now they've got salt in the wound, courtesy of the Tidehunter.
They were really waiting to take that fight. The Drow Ranger was actually pumping out incredible amounts of damage because of the 100 attack speed on the Mirana. She was level 25 before the first fight started, but they actually just don't have enough damage against the Weave and the AC on the DK. He's sitting at 42 armor, and he's almost level 25 now.
This may be a nice little one to have. Nyx Assassin using the Spire Carapace to get a nice little stun. Unless the Drow Ranger finish up the job. Some breathing room is all they really get for this, but you can see Execration on the top lane. They're headed for the melee racks.
Mirana's in the grave for 80 seconds.
They buy back the SK. This is a trade-off. So SK has to defend on the bottom lane. Drow Rangers can be pretty quick about this, but they're actually going for tier 4 towers. Execration, they want to end this right now, if possible. The Drow Rangers going for the tier 4 towers. We've got ourselves an old-fashioned base race. Unfortunately for WG, they don't have the numbers, they don't have the power, they don't have the strength. They really don't even have this game unless they can defend at the moment. Ravage, 9 seconds until it's back off cooldown, and in comes the Eclipse. How much damage? A lot of it onto Afu. He's getting ripped apart by the Moonglaive. No buybacks available for WG, and they call it out. Execration will take the throne as WG, well, the wheels definitely came off that car.
I think it's it showed the weaknesses and the strengths of the Drow Rangers. Like, she was really strong in the early game, pushing the towers for the early game skirmishes, but they didn't have enough range heroes to support her precision aura, and they were just on top of her all the time with the mass armor from Execration. And overall, I thought that Execration's draft was a little bit better. They didn't play particularly well in the first 15 minutes, but in those later game team fights, DJ nailed those Ravages and annihilated.
Yeah, you kind of want to put him as like the hero of the game. Like, okay, yeah, the Ravages don't work well. That gank on middle lane didn't function, but that bottom fight, the fight that happened just between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower of the Radiant side on the edge of the jungle where you thought there was vision, the Drow walked in, the Ravage hits, and momentum just slowly starts to move at that point. Critical items come up for Execration, WG. The BKB just got heavily delayed. Timing was wrong, and well, game number 1, they guess to go the way of Execration, and we'll have game number 2 in just a bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Resorts World Genting for ESL One Genting 2017. We are inside the second game. Obviously, the first game just happened. We'll get the draft underway after a break. But before we get there, we're going to have a look back at Game 1. It was a very special Game 1 in many ways. A few mistakes, obviously, here and there, but an exciting game, nevertheless.
I don't think there are very few games where I've watched the losers of a game and gone like, man, I wish they had won. You know, just because I was really impressed by Warrior Gaming. Like, first of all, Nana was going insane. Second of all, they played so well as a team around these big team fight ultimates. Like, how many of those Ravages just felt like maybe you hit 1, 2 heroes? How many of those, like, those Luna ultimates were just like, you know, they were like, they actually played positioning-wise very good against it. It was just like the draft was set against them.
Yeah, it was like one Ravage that hit like 4 in there. Gods, what are your thoughts?
I think, yeah, Execration, lucky they had that draft because I didn't feel like the teamwork was really there. The Sanking especially was just nowhere to be seen. He was the reason Nana got like a ridiculously early accept. He just kept getting caught out. He was the one playmaker they had. I think that was one of the limitations of Execration's draft. They didn't have like a clear playmaking hero outside of the support Sanking, so there was a lot of pressure on him. Didn't really step up and do too much, and Nana got completely out of control of the Mirana. Arjit on the Drow Ranger was positioning incredibly well in team fights, dishing out a huge amount of damage, and I think Execration lucky to walk away with a win based on how they played.
Yeah, Jacob, same for you?
I don't particularly agree with Austin's analysis of the tide. I thought his Ravages were almost always on point. I think he had one bad one, and then the rest of them hit at least 3 targets.
I didn't say he did bad Ravages. I said WG Unity played very well against it, though.
I thought you said he only hit 1 with them because they positioned so very well.
I think there was one where he hit 4, but other than that, it was, you know,
but this one as well.
They were catching some, yeah.
There were certainly plenty of times where it was like, okay, you've hit 1 core and 1 support, but like considering the fact that they have all these big AoE team fighting ultimates, they would use like multiple BKBs and multiple team fight ultimates, and they wouldn't like very clearly win. They would get like maybe 1 core, maybe 1 support off of that fight, but it was just the fact that it was so late into the game that it just didn't even matter at that point.
But in a lot of these fights, especially this middle one, they didn't actually have their ultimates up. They were still waiting for the Ravage, and then, as luck would have it, look at this.
Yeah,
Whoa,
this is insane.
that Gosh just completely wins them the next 10 minutes of the game, basically, because they get to live for an extended period of time. By all means, Mirana and Shadow Demon should have both died in this case.
Oh yeah, I think so too. That was a pretty lucky gust. That was just like at the right time, right as the Tidehunter blinked in.
Did what they needed to do, though. God.
Yeah, look at their position here. Like they know the Ravage is coming.
Yeah,
like,
that was the one I was talking about. That's the one Ravage where he only hits 1.
Yeah, I think that like as a whole, like I was really impressed by the way WG Unity was playing around it, but ultimately they were a lineup that wasn't going to be able to win this game very easily unless they snowballed super quickly.
This is the key fight, and this is where they really overdid, because they know Ravage is down and they see their opponents rushing, and they're like, let's go, 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 and they just fully overcommit. They don't have heroes really in place. They lead with some of their core heroes rather than heroes like the Nyx Assassin, as well as the Slardar, and this fight is just a complete mess right now for WG Unity.
Yeah, that pause didn't help in the middle of that either, did it? I mean, it wasn't going to change much
I mean,
after
it was already a bad
knew
fight.
what we were going to do, yeah.
Yeah,
It was incredible how much DJ did to actually zone out that Drow Ranger, because the reason they took that fight is because half of the Execration lineup is just below half HP, and they're like, okay,
yeah,
I can do this. Shoot them down. But he was just standing there, anchor smashing and making sure that she couldn't move in on the lower targets.
Yeah, I think they had to take that fight 100% because there was no BKBs, no team fight ultimates. You were never going to get a better opportunity to take back control of the game, just because like ultimately if you just waited it out, right, they were just going to have their team fight ults again. They're going to be pushing into you. That was the only chance for them to be able to take something, maybe get the Aegis, and then actually be the aggressors for once. I think like so much of it came down to like the 4th pick was the Nyx Assassin.
Yeah. It was a superior lineup for Execration, especially after the beginning for Warriors Gaming. I really thought they might stand a chance just because of that Mirana picking up a 15-minute axe after having roamed the entire map. He was at every lane and every kill, and he still managed to get enough farm as well. I guess the kills played a big part in that.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a clip I saw in the middle of all of that where it was actually during the pause, and you saw Execration. I don't know how I describe this. It wasn't really a discussion. It was more like a set of arguments going on. And actually, they were in a good position when I was thinking, wow, what happens when they're in a bad position?
Well, that was the pause when they actually were winning the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'll probably get very animated, like yelling, making a clear decision of when to back, where to fight, who to focus, because that was 3 heroes that just bought back, and suddenly it's like, pause. What do we do? It's like the tense moment where Roche is 5% HP. You're kind of out of the pit, you finish off Roshan, you take the fight, and they made the right call and not going back to finish off. Like Luna was hitting Roche and then immediately comes over to keep making sure they win that fight.
All right, well, thank you all 3 of you. We are headed to a break right now. When we come back, however, we will have game number 2. The draft will be upon us. Don't go too far away. Rejoin us soon at ESL One, Genting.